Okay. Let's just wait a minute to make sure this doesn't kick out on me. Press that button, make sure. Yep. I think we're good. Links are out. Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the final part. I don't know why I'm doing that voice. That's a voice I learned from Troy Baker. Alright, we're back. And we are here to talk about Endgame. Original and new. And how many issues I have with original and how many of them are gone. Just no caveats, gone. Let's casually remind myself a couple things. Gotcha. And there's one last thing I need to switch around. Oh, it's one of the best ones. I love this theme so much. So, let's talk about Shido. So Shido, what I have written down in my notes on this one, why Shido is a great villain with caveats. So I think Shido, as the thing that the game was originally really building up to, works really well, and I think most of what they do hits a lot of the right notes really hard. The way that they tie who he is into a lot of the pre-existing characters feels a little messy at times, but at the end of this game, at the end of the day, this whole game is focused on heightened reality, so I'm not going to give it too much slack for that, you know? In terms of, oh, it was all related to this one guy. No, I get it. Like, you know, stand up, I get it. You know, that kind of stuff's going to come up. It's a little too neat, but it's also like, yeah, that's fine. Shido, I think the biggest caveat with Shido is mainly just that, like, most of his villainy is off-screen, And they do that for a reason, and it's a reason I actually really appreciate. And that reason, by the way, I'm running away around Svatava because I didn't do that during her month. Shido is... I think he's a really good villain, and the reason they hold back on his... most of what he is because they ultimately want to save it for a reveal when you get to him as a boss. Which I think is pretty neat. It's a good idea. You know, you want to save it for that big pop, and for the most part, I think that works really well. But I do think it definitely hurts him that a lot of what he does is phone calls and kind of being off screen. That being said, and we'll get into this a little later, but boy, is that boss awesome, and it really it grabs him by the shirt and like pulls him up to where he should be. So I live with it at the end of the day. He's still a good final antagonist in the game. So that's fine. My phone's working again, so that's nice. Vessel of Corruption. I love the boat. The boat's awesome. I think my thing was always like, when I got to that point of the game, I was always like, man, I don't want the game to be over. So I was like really happy with a 7-hour palace. So, and I know some people are like, oh, it drags. I'm like, yeah, I'm glad it does. The big thing about it, though, was always like, man, the mouse puzzles are kind of weird, and it feels like they needed another pass. You know, it's not like the idea's bad. It's that it feels like they needed another microscope on them, and that's what Royal did. Royal's biggest changes to this palace are mainly in transmorphing or transmogrifying the hallways between the zones to be more precise and for the puzzles to be more understandable, and I think that that's good. I like that the mice puzzles are now just easier to read in general, and they don't feel like a hindrance, and the hallways that I was very used to being overly long are a lot shorter, or at least they feel shorter. I think I was generally in the palace about the same amount of time, but it felt a lot snappier, which is kind of a theme with a lot of Royal's redone palaces, is that they ultimately are about the same playtime, but they feel snappier, which is what you want, you know? There's less moments where you're like, okay, I get it, sure, whatever. So yeah, Vessel of Corruption I think is awesome. Interestingly, I wrote down Shido was behind it all, why I ultimately like it. I think I kind of covered that a second ago, and I was like, you know, that it turns out he had his fingers in the pies of every other element up to that point, you know? So that I don't mind. I do like it because, you know, the kind of game that this is, where it's all on heightened reality, I like that it all kind of leads back to him, you know? I think it works more than it doesn't work. So that's that on that. Kasumi wants to join, but final boss is a bit much for a rookie. This is entirely true. Wow, by the way, I've actually kind of dealt with a lot of these things I wanted to talk about very quickly, and by rolling them into multiple places. I guess I had less to say about this one than I thought. That's funny. So Kasumi comes out, and she wants to join. By the way, there's a reason I haven't used her tile yet. You know, I don't want to bury the lead on this. So, Kasumi wants to join. She's like, hey, listen, you guys are going up against your roughest challenge yet. I heard that you died, and I wanted to make sure that you're okay. Because that does happen over text, which is good. I wanted to make sure you're okay. Can I help? And Ren basically says, no, you have no idea how fucking crazy tough what we're about to fight is. So, sorry, but no. And I think what could potentially come off as like, oh, of course, you can't let her interfere with original events, plays really well for me, because it does make sense why she wouldn't be allowed to come, because, like, fighting God King of Japan is a bit much for Rookie's first day. Throwing her into the deep end of all the nonsense with Akechi would be quite a lot. So I do understand that choice ultimately, and I think they do play it out pretty well, so I don't mind it. Again, it would be nice to use her in Mementos, but you know, I get it. Lies and hatred, Akechi. So let's talk about two parts of Akechi real quick. One are I believe it'll be on the right one if I do this. No, it won't. Gotcha. So, we arrive at the end of the cruise ship to discover this motherfucker has already shown up with his persona, his true persona, Loki. Which, by the way, giving him Loki as his mythological trickster, so fucking good. I'm so happy. Like, and he looks so cool, too. The little smile that you could see on his face, like, his sword just sort of flipping around in the air, his lackadaisical pose, it's so fucking good. And, gosh, I haven't been playing visual aids for this. I got wrapped up in my, my tone of things. Gotta remember to do that, because I won't be able to do that a little later, because I will not be able to show stuff for a little bit later. So let's roll through a couple of these.
How's it look over there?
Yeah, discovering the Cruiser of Pride.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, use your eyes.
What's up, Futaba? Futaba?
What is it?
The hell?
What a great reveal. As the palace that exists after Casino, which is the last one that it's the one that you're building to, there has to be an aesthetic that really fits, and it's not like anything you could predict that would be coming up next, and they nail it. The idea of the rest of the country is sinking, I don't give a shit. Where I steer this country is all that matters. Lies and hatred. So, Akechi finally reveals his true form. Yo, motherfucker. And then he starts fucking losing it, and Robbie Damon fucking kills the performance.
I'll show you who I really am. Come, Loki!
The reveal of him being a wild card who can use multiple personas is so nice.
Ken, it's that persona.
What's going on?
Don't make me laugh. Justice, righteous, keep that shit to yourselves. You and your teammates piss me off.
He can use two separate powers? Then everything, even his appearance, was a fake.
You're going down. I'll destroy you. Go down with me.
No way!
That bastard. He made himself go psychotic.
So this is a wonderful idea. Like it's an idea that the other games have toyed with, which is like some personas can have unique abilities entirely unique to themselves, and his is the ability to drive someone psychotic, and he literally uses it on himself, which is such a wonderful twist. And that scene itself is so good, and it's such a wonderful climax for that character until it's not. Because it feels like, hey, now we've finally revealed something about this character, right? Let's go play dress up again. So we finally revealed something about this character. We've gotten to the point where this character is now literally not lying. He's acting like himself completely and entirely. He is no longer lying to anyone. This is him. What you see is what you get. And you're sitting there like, man, I'm so excited for us to play around with this character like this. I love this costume, by the way. It's hilariously Nomura with all the belts. Something I didn't even really notice because it's on screen so little until Royal. Like, I always saw the gray and the blue, but the belts are hilarious to me. So you have all this stuff with him, and it's like, oh man, I'm so excited to see them play around with all this and like really dive into what makes him. He's gone. What? He's gone. He's dead. He basically dies off screen, actually. What? What do you mean he dies off screen? Oh, he's like, oh, y'all better not forget me. And by the way, this is a scene I've gone through a bit of a journey on personally, in that the first time I was happy with it until that moment. Second time I was more forgiving, but I was like, it's still really weird. It kind of feels like his arc didn't finish, because his whole deal is Shido manipulated him throughout his entire life and used him as a tool, and the guy never got the chance to have a normal life because he was just manipulated into murder and lies and all these things from the very start by one of the most, like, brutal, awful adults on the planet. No wonder he ends up like that. Which brings a very fascinating wrinkle for the protagonist a little bit later, thanks to the new semester. But he's just so fucking done. He is... This character, you get the sense that, like, man, if this guy had just not been completely destroyed by this human, he probably could have had a normal life. And, you know, not done half the shit he does in this outfit. But because Shido manipulated him his entire life, he ended up where he ended up. And just as we're getting ready to play around with that, and like, okay, let's see where that goes. And now, like, we can dive into how much he hates Shido, and maybe he can even help out in the Shido fight, right? Like he doesn't need to have a moment of redemption. This character is not heading towards redemption. In fact, one of the great things about him is that he is so committed, and he doesn't want that you're waiting for him to not redeem himself, because that's clearly not what he wants. You're waiting for him to have a final moment of vindication, where he murders the shit out of Shido, or at least attempts. Which is why it's so weird in the original when he basically dies off screen, and you're almost waiting for a moment in the Shido fight where he flies in from off camera and has a moment where he dies in spite of his best attempts to, like, not even help the party, but just to spite Shido, and nothing happens. He's just dead. It doesn't matter. Fuck you. Whatever. It feels like his character arc didn't end. And regardless of what you thought of him before, I know a lot of people have changed their opinions of him, thanks to Royal, myself included. It feels like you're waiting for something that just doesn't happen, and then he never appears again. And now something I find interesting is how the protagonists and the cast all seem to get him pretty much immediately. It's not forgiveness, which is something I've seen a lot of people mistake it for. It's not forgiveness, it's, wow, you were manipulated, and wow, you were abused to an enormous degree, like a lot of us have been. You didn't deserve to be thrown down this path, and that doesn't excuse your choices, but holy shit, I really wish you could have just had a normal life. The ones that in particular hit the hardest chord for me on that are Frutella and Haru, because they have the most reason to be mad at him of anybody in the cast. He killed their parents. He killed Frutella's mom, and he killed Haru's dad. They have more right to be mad at him than anyone else in the cast, and even them, because they're good people, are like, man, I don't forgive you, but you got a raw deal, and I'm not so blinded by my own hatred that I can't see that. And that's wonderful. Like, that ties into the theme that I think is one of my favorite things in this game, which is people can try to be better to an extent, even if they can't wipe out the bad things they've done, but they can try to rebuild, and it's something that I really appreciate as a message. But at the end of the day, as far as the original game is concerned, Akechi just dies off screen like a bitch, and that's the end of it, and it sucks. And I'm so glad that we've now gone past that and fixed that. Shit, where did I put my phone? Oh. blending in because of the black screen. Yeah, so there's that. Wow, I can't believe how little we actually have to talk about Cheeto's arc left. It's because not a lot happens, actually. Because it's ultimately just protagonist is, you know, everybody thinks he's dead, do social links, conquer the palace. It's very directed, which is not a bad thing by any means. And then we get to the calling card scene, which is, holy shit, this is one of the best scenes in the game. Like, holy shit, I remember sitting, like, standing up and clapping the first time. I clapped when I saw it, cause, like, dude. God.
And all of us are alive and kicking. But those shitty guys in power, they've been manipulating information to try and hide the truth.
What is this? Where's it coming from?
I don't know. We can't switch it out. Seems we aren't the only ones affected either.
So, before we appropriate our next target, we would like to first borrow your time.
The recent scandals of public figures, what if that's just an event? Psychotic breakdowns and mental shutdowns. These weren't caused by unknown reasons.
Also, hilariously, I think this is the only time Wake Up, Get Out There plays in Royal. Like outside of the Thieves' Den, where you can rewatch the intro. I think. I need to check on that, but I think this is the only time that plays. Which, in fairness, is good, at least for me, because I'm never going to be able to separate it from that blatantly racist Kotaku article that was like, I heard an Asian lady say this word that she didn't actually say, and I want everyone to know that I heard this word that she didn't actually say because she's a well-known voice fucking singer that doesn't speak perfect English, you racist fucks. Anyways.
The man behind it all is a current cabinet member of all things.
I get really mad about that. Like, it's so hilariously, overtly racist.
Everything that makes sense a lot. If you're not, look, as you can see, all of
I really want to know the mechanics of this. Did they bring like a camera in and film these did they recreate the costumes so they could film it? It's such a weird thing for me to want to know, but and I know the answer is it doesn't matter, dude. It's fine. But like, I want to know. It's funny.
What's going on?
We're not gonna sit back and watch some crook wreck this country just because of this goddamn.
I haven't mentioned it yet, but
Ain't that right?
shit. Why am I blanking on his name? Craig Silverstein, or Keith Silverstein. Craig. Keith Silverstein. Just kills it as Shido, even though he doesn't get as much as I'd like, but he still does a great job. I think I probably would like. I think Shido would probably land a little bit harder for me if he showed up a couple more times throughout the game, outside of like him being on TV, because I don't think that's quite enough. But you know, I still think he's a great villain. Mainly, I think the lead up to him, you're like, yeah, okay, cool, bald guy, he's angry, wants to rule the world. I get it. All that stuff is like, yeah, okay, I get it. That's fun, fine. But then. Moment. Let's see. Have I got? Yeah, Sheila's calling card. Yeah, the final boss stage. All right. So yeah, and then you get here, and I'm sitting here like, man, we haven't even seen his ruler form once throughout the whole palace. I don't. It's kind of weird. Are we just gonna fight him in a suit?
This is unfortunate. I have no choice but
Kind
to
of
eliminate you all.
a little disappointing.
A small leak will sink a great ship. Great nations have fallen to such lenience.
I feel like Shido, as a villain, saves himself from being forgettable throughout the course of this fight in multiple ways, because, like, wow, this fight it actually says more about him than most of his dialogue. Show, don't tell is quite literally in effect for this fight. A detail I always like is the Yusuke jumps first. I don't know why. I just really like it. Like he's the one that goes, yeah, let's do it.
Let me make myself clear. Do not think of me as you did my foolish
Yeah, this is the
son
moment
who
where you're
acted
like,
so
oh.
rashly.
Oh.
You little...
I think most of his villainy, like, comes out in the fight and through Akechi's big confession.
Our leader's gone through shit because of you. It's on!
Like, him literally riding on a being made of the masses is so good. Oh, before I fucking keep talking about this fight without setting the mood properly. So you get to that fight, and not only is the fight itself really awesome, but we approach, you know what? We approach the fight, and we're getting into it. We're getting all jazzed up. This nice instrumental theme is here. It's doing some good shit for the fight. The tone of the fight is really nice. Yeah, there we go. The tone of the fight is really nice. I really like the way it's set up. You get to the second phase, and this shit kicks in. Lyrical themes are the only way you have any business ending your video game. This is law. Rivers is so fucking great. I think this game has a better lyrical ending theme now. It's probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Lyn tracks. Although, Counter-Strike from Scramble is a real contender. Oh, I should not be doing that with my throat today. I still have plenty to talk about. I shouldn't be risking that right now. So we go through the fight, and like, you start with the magical, the fucking elemental phase, then you start with the physical phase, then you get to a phase that's about both. Then, at the point where I'm already like, okay, this fight's pretty good, Shido's pretty cool, he pulls off his shirt, and I scream, Armstrong! And I'm losing my mind because this game went Metal Gear Rising, and boy is that a good way to get in my good graces. And then he starts doing like big fist punches, and I'm losing my mind, and oh my god, it's so good. But then they add a new phase to this game, which is a DPS race between just Joker and him. You better have brought your best shit. I pulled it on my first try, but man, I can see some people getting stuck on that, because, oh boy. Yikes. That phase is tough. I only made it out by the skin of my teeth on my first go. I actually don't think I failed to any of the bosses in the game. I don't think I lost to anyone. I think I pretty much got everybody on my first go in Royal. I was pretty happy about that, because it seems like people are having more trouble this time. Which is funny, because a lot of the strategies haven't changed, and in fact the strategy hasn't changed for Shido either. It's still, like, buff, big hits, but now it's, you have to do it with only Joker's turn. And it's really neat. It's funny, I actually haven't seen anyone put out like guides yet for like how you're supposed to deal with that efficiently, but I still got through it, and it seems like some people are still getting through it, so you know. It's not like it's a wash or anything. But holy shit, that fight. It does so much in so little time to establish how fucking awesome Shido is. And boy, did they knock it out of the park with that. And it's why I think that would have been a really great place for the game to end, sans the stuff with Akechi feeling like it was unfinished. So, with that out of the way, we move on to a significantly shorter both arc and list of things to talk about. I'm gonna rest my throat for just a minute and let this track finish up, because it's great. You know you want to hear it. Shit. I don't know if I'm gonna pick either one. It's gonna be the Reaper. So we arrive at a part of the game that I have a lot of emotions about, that are very mixed. Very mixed. And it's the original ending, so I kind of had to live with this for a long time. So the Mementos depths, we have defeated Shido, but the world doesn't seem to have taken to it this time. And things seem askew, and things seem off, and we don't really know how to deal with that. So people eventually realize that, like, okay, Mementos seems fucky, and we might want to do something about that. And like, if we do that, then we won't be able to go to the metaverse anymore. So that'll be the last job as the Phantom Thieves, supposedly. Yeah. Until sequels. To my understanding, I think the jails in Scramble are a different thing, but I don't know, so, you know. I'm sure when certain real-life lockdowns are a little more lax, maybe I'll be able to find out about that. Real quick, because I just realized I didn't talk about it. The escape. Ryuji's big moment. I'm gonna show it now just because, like, one, rest my throat, and also, you know, fuck yeah, Ryuji.
We're gonna die! I don't know how to swim! Over there! A lifeboat! Let's go!
So, you know, they escape, and, you know, they kind of realize that something's fucky with Mementos. So they realize they have to go in and try and change it. And assuming you haven't gone through every Mementos block throughout the game to that point, because you're a crazy person, I guess, you then have to blitz the whole thing. Or, more accurately, you've already done it all because you're not a fucking idiot. And, you know, you're good. So you head in. Hold on. Even with that bum leg, do it. I'm sure, I've never really seen people discuss it. I'm sure some people must be weird about the fake out for Ryuji's death here. But, like, you know, obviously he's not gonna die. And I wouldn't want him to. Casual reminder that your media doesn't need someone to die to be good. As a matter of fact, it can often be a cheat. There are obviously some pieces of media where, like, the death matters because it's about death. You know, P3 is an example. The original FF7 is an example. But, like, your story isn't, like, weak because you chose not to kill someone. That's not how that works. You know what's about to happen. Anyways. So, that's actually a little bit further in. So yeah, we head to the Mementos Depths to see what's up. Why am I not remembering this one? Oh, I see, yeah. So, you know, we roll in, and along the way, we discover the Holy Grail. Holy Grail's like, yo, what's up? Hey, I'm gonna merge reality and Mementos. You alright with that? Okay, I'm about to head out.
Mementos here in Shibuya.
I like thematically a lot of the things in the original ending, but it forgets a lot of the elements that I think are the game's strongest to get to a conclusion.
What's going on here?
And what do I mean by that, you might think? Well, let me see if I got that written down a little later.
I've not seen any of this at all.
Yeah, I actually do have that written down a little later, so yeah, we'll cover that then.
What the hell?
To think this would happen.
I like this part of the game way more as a stepping stone to the actual ending than I do as the actual ending. It fits that way better. This scene is rad.
That son of a bitch! God damn it! What's this creepy ass shit about? Ah! Ah! My hand!
Ryuji! This can't be real, right?
What is happening to us?
No! No! My body's disappearing! Don't tell me.
Indeed, this isn't my doing. You imbeciles are about to disappear from the people's cognition.
That damn voice!
Mementos and reality have become one. Thus those who have disappeared from cognition cannot exist anywhere.
Disappear my ass! What the hell? Yeah!
Is this really it?
No! No! Morgana, where did we go wrong? Is this all my fault? Because
No,
I brought you all there?
but fuck.
Damn it!
Yeah,
I'm
Avengers
sorry.
Infinity War.
The mission's a failure.
Mr. Ren, I don't feel so good. Mr. Amamiya, I don't feel so good. So, we arrive there, and then we get into Igor. Now, the Igor twist, I think, is... I'm gonna pause it just real quick. So we get to Igor, and Igor reveals something that I think is a wonderful piece of meta storytelling that, unfortunately, very much requires outside knowledge. Because the big reveal is that, hey, throughout the whole game, if you're familiar with the series, you may have noticed, whether you are playing in English or Japanese, actually, that's not Igor's voice. Igor's voice is different. What's up with that? That's interesting. Now, if you know real life events, you are aware that Igor's voice actor died in 2010. So him being in this game at all was already kind of crazy. And I think in Persona 4 Golden and in several of the animes, they just reused old voice lines so that they could keep chronological, keep canon and stuff like that, because they basically just had him say a bunch of, the generic stuff. Welcome to the Velvet Room. Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, I should mention, I mean his Japanese voice actor died, and they decided to roll that into the plot here. So if you are playing the game regularly, you are kind of thinking, that's kind of weird that he sounds... You're thinking, well, it's not weird that he sounds different because obviously they had to replace him, but even if you didn't know that, you are at least acutely aware of the fact that, like, he's got a different voice now. But whatever, it's a voice actor change, it happens, so you're not thinking about it. And you get to the reveal that, well, it's actually because it's not Igor. It's a being known as Yaldabaoth, the god of control, and he is here to prove a point. He has basically decided to pit two beings against each other to try and prove that humanity isn't worthy of free will, essentially. And he has been masquerading as Eeyore for the whole game. And he also split the Velvet Twins in two, because they originally had one form. I do like this twist as a fan of the series, but boy does it fall flat for people that played this one, play P5 first. I've had a bunch of conversations with a lot of people who played P5 first and went, so what was the deal with that? And I went, well, it's because everything I just explained, and they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, okay. And I'm like, oh, but that's a big moment, and it's completely lost on you. Oh, that's unfortunate. So, you know. But it happens. At the end of the day, I don't think they shouldn't have gone for it, because even if, say, something a little more recent, like FF7 Remake does some similar things, that, boy, am I happy about. But yeah, like, we get to Lavenza, who, by the way, Lavenza's so fucking awesome. And that shit is incredible. And, yeah, so you know, we make it through that. I think the reveal with him is really strong, but it definitely requires some outside knowledge. Then we go through a series of quick scenes where each character has a semblance of a closing of their character arcs. They were originally unvoiced, and boy did that make me upset back then. But now they are fully voiced, and that makes me really happy. I think... So here's the thing. Then we fight Yaldabaoth. And this is where I'm going to get into what I think about Yaldabaoth. I think Yaldabaoth is a good final confrontation. I don't think he's a great one. And the reason for that, I have to back up in order to explain. So, this is a problem that I think the game originally had, and it's a problem that I think P4 had to a lesser extent, much lesser. Maybe not much. Actually, I think maybe they're about in the same way, which is another reason why I have always kind of had P3, P5, P4 as my rankings. I'm not going to talk about 1 and 2, because people have thoughts about my thoughts. And, you know, I think it's a thing that never bothered me in P3, which is that after everyone's initial arcs, after each character's month, sometimes the characters run the risk of growing a little bit static and sort of resting on their laurels of who they are. And it never feels like they've stopped being themselves by any means, but there is always a feeling of like, here's the thing, I don't mind it as long as the end of the game brings us to a place where they're all overcoming something that's specific to them. I think P3 does this very well by... And I don't even really think it was on purpose, but the fact that P3's narrative is laid out in such a way where S-Links aren't... Because S-Links is supposed to be the solution to this problem, right? S-Links are supposed to extend their arc out throughout the game, throughout the course of the whole game, so that you still feel like they're developing and growing as people. And I think for P4 that works just fine, and I think for P5 it works alright. I think all of their links in 5 are fantastic, don't get me wrong. But in both of these games, in P4 and P5, I always wish that there was one last thing at the end that challenged each of them specifically, as opposed to, let's all go beat up a big thing. You know? Because, hey, the big thing's cool. I think it was cool when they beat up the big thing. I clapped when I saw it, but there's a level of, like, I feel like no one's overcoming anything that's specific to them. That always kind of bugged me. And it's something I don't think that affects P3, because each of their narratives are spread throughout the course of the year in the main plot, because they didn't do S-Links for everyone just yet. The S-Links for the main cast, specifically for the girls, because it's only the girls in P3, they do develop them. Not nearly as much as, like, the main plot does, and I think that's something that always set that aside for me in P3, is that that's always very integral to the main story, so it doesn't feel like they've sort of been left by the wayside. It does bug me in P4, and it did bug me in this game. But that's not that's kind of solved for this game for me now, and we'll get into why a little later. But that's kind of where I feel about Yaldabaoth, is that I don't feel like he ultimately represents a challenge to each of the characters individually in a way that they feel like they have overcome something as a person. Again, they beat up a big thing. Great. I'm happy. It was cool. I liked it. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what that's what I mean. Like, each of the casts in P3 has their second tiers come out via main story progress as opposed to their S-Link stuff, so it feels more tied to the main narrative. So that's kind of why I always had a problem with this being the end, but it's something that the third semester, which boy are we going to get into, really fixes for me. And it's something that I hope that P6 learns from. Because it felt like someone was listening to what was in my brain. That being said, don't get me wrong, this fight's awesome. It's just way more awesome as not the ending. This whole sequence has wonderful moments. The Igor thing is a great reveal. We'll get into how this fight ends in a little bit. It's awesome. That stuff is all great. Every part of this ending individually is a great moment, but it doesn't coalesce in a way that I'm fully on board with. For example, in terms of things that are just the best, the bringing all your S-Links together scene in these games, they're always so good. Because they're built in. Like, they almost earn themselves. The fact that you only see the ones that you did as opposed to, like, the ones you didn't finish, just kind of showing up and being like, yeah, I guess. You get to this, and, like, I've never been more hype about a progress bar. A meter.
Phantom thieves.
Oh.
Yes, the Phantom Thieves!
Phantom thieves! Go Phantom thieves! Phantom thieves! Phantom thieves! Can you hear us?
And then it cuts to a bunch of other guys. But, yeah, then this. Yeah! Look at this scene that still seems to have a PS3 resolution. Probably doesn't come across on the screen, but boy does it. Holy shit, man, it's so good. And then, of course, and while, listen, again, I have some issues with Yaldabaoth as a place in the story, but holy fuck, Satanael. Again, I just think that this whole sequence works better in the context of, like, not being the end. I definitely do like the aspect of, like, more of SMT's themes coming into the end of this game. At the same time, it's kind of my thing of, like, this game, the themes that I think make this game stand out the best versus chaos and control, you know, and lawful and all that sort of stuff. I think my thing has always been that the game, to me, is always at its best when it's going on about people's desires and how far they will go to get them, you know? Like, I think that is so... I think it's the game's best theme. And I think it's great that someone realized that and made that kind of the end-all, be-all finale. I don't think this part of the game should be gone. I just think it works better as part of it as opposed to the ending. The game would be worse without all of this. 1000%. Like, if this wasn't there? Oh, man, fuck that. Shoot God! Oh man, I'm used to the song being deeper in. Because it usually gets to play out a little further before this. Yeah, because, oh man, it doesn't even get to the best part when you play it like this. That sucks. That's unfortunate, but that's fine. But yeah, and the theme of, like, desires and how far people will go for them, I think that's the game's best theme to me, which is why I'm really happy that seems to have come out more now. I don't have those 4 scenes, so I can't roll anything from the original ending, because I actually need to go through the game for the original ending. I might do that on stream. Like, I might do a full playthrough without the new stuff, just so I can get that, because I can't see any other reason why I would do it. So we get to the end. And the original ending, I think, is not a bad ending by any means. I just think that it doesn't quite attain as much as the game could have. And I'm really glad that someone at Atlas got that. And like, okay, where else can this go? You know?
So beautiful. Yeah.
I think those themes definitely do fit there to a certain extent, but, and I actually have a big part I want to talk about with that, in terms of lawful versus chaos SMT themes. But there is a specific aspect of it that I've seen some people discuss that I want to talk about why. Oh yeah, it's the piano version is so good. There's a specific thing that I think people have overblown about the new ending that I want to talk about why I think it's ultimately not as important as some other people think as the big theme. But I'll get into that in a minute.
The world will shine brightly as long as you hold hope in your hearts.
God, this scene, even though this cat has some rough moments, fucked me up the first time. Even more now, because I think new semester stuff really brings his arc even more close to a close. I ugly cried when the cat walked back in the diner the first time. Like, it was bad. And when I tell people that, and they're like, really? For that? I'm like, yes. Absolutely.
Those are what shape reality.
I fucking lost it. I really thought he was dead. I really thought he was dead, and even with some of this cat's moments, I love this cat. I like him more than Teddy, which is a take some people disagree with.
The world exists within all of you.
Okay, so I'm going to set the stage for lots of talks on endgame stuff. I'm going to quickly, literally set the stage. And then I'm going to pee, because I need to pee. Jesus, is there not more to put out there? It's gotta be some other stuff. Actually, that'll still do. Ah, hell yeah, actually. Anything in particular that I'm... No, not really. Holy fuck, this theme, by the way, before I step out for a minute. Hard Kingdom Hearts 2 vibes. Like, this is very The World That Never Was, and I adore it. Okay, I will be right back. Sorry, that took slightly longer than I wanted it to. Whew. I had to clean something out. Alright. I meant a straw. I said I was going to the bathroom. That could have sounded very interesting. Anyways. Alright. My list for the third semester is very big. I have a lot to talk about. So, I want to start out of order, actually. I want to talk about one thing that is a sentiment that I saw some people talking about that I very strongly disagreed with, but I wanted to give it a fair shot, so when I went back through the third semester before I did this, because I wanted to make sure I had all my thoughts in order properly. I actively looked for evidence for this, because I wanted to know if I'm full of shit. Because I don't want to call other people full of shit if maybe I am. I want to talk about Azathoth for a little bit, and I probably won't talk a lot about him after it, because I don't think he's as important to what matters to the game's final semester as the game might want you to think. Because I don't think he represents what the game's ultimately trying to go for. I think he's a vehicle to get us there. So here's the idea. The idea that I saw was that Maruki... Again, I'm getting very ahead of myself. I'm getting ahead of certain other ideas to get this out of the way, but I want to deal with this quickly. The idea is that Maruki... that Azathoth's plan is to destroy the world via Maruki's reality, and that was always the plan, but not only that, but that Maruki was aware of that and wanted to destroy the world too. That's fucking garbage. That makes no sense, even based on what Maruki is saying all the way up to the end of the game. There is no way he believes that. Now, I do think that there is totally a chance that Azathoth is not exactly on the up and up. Maybe the best hint we have for that is that he's called Azathoth! He's the father of Nyarlathotep in fucking Cthulhu, or fucking Lovecraft. He's the father of lies. Yeah, he's probably not got the best intentions. However, a lot of this is speculation, but it's just what I genuinely believe, because I think the game's themes fall apart if you try to extrapolate this any further past this. And I don't think that that's the case, based on everything that I've re-examined. So, I think Azathoth absolutely is not up to any good. Let's get that out of the way right now. Azathoth is not a happy camper, and he's not a team player. However, I do think the only way that he could get to our world in the first place was to basically form a pact with someone. It's totally up in the air whether or not you want to argue that, like, Maruki's persona just isn't on the up and up, and maybe that is just an aspect of him. I very much think Azathoth is another entity that latched onto him. But I definitely believe that Azathoth cannot alter reality on his own. He needs to latch onto someone, and in a very symbiotic relationship, he actually can't just destroy the world as long as Maruki is, like, giving in, right? Like, I think the only way that he could actually destroy the world, as I genuinely believe Big Boy up there wants to at the end of the boss, is because Maruki gave himself over. And I don't think Maruki is even remotely aware if that's the case. Because again, even the idea that he is trying to destroy the world is very much, like, outer speculation, you know? I think that, like, at that moment, he was probably going for it, and it very much seems like Adam Cadmon's up to no good. But the idea that Maruki knew... Specifically, something that someone told me was that in the moment where you pick the good ending, which, by the way, I can't show any more visual aids over there because all that stuff is blocked, but I do have some visual aids that I can use, so that'll be fine. That when Ren kind of waves and smirks to Maruki, which, by the way, it's not as much of a smirk as I was initially told. I've gone back and looked at it a couple times. That's Ren going, I'm okay with you destroying the world as long as I'm able to, like, live happily with my friends until the... No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I think that's crazy, and I think that genuinely destroys everything that I love about these characters. I think it destroys Ren. I think it especially destroys Maruki, who I think is one of the most fascinating characters in this series now. The idea that he knew... I think there's absolutely a chance that Azathoth is up to no good. His name is Azathoth. But I don't think Maruki was aware of that at the very least, because if he was, then most of what Maruki says all the way up to the end of the game doesn't make sense. He very much believes in what he's doing. So yeah, that's kind of where I come down on that. I think Azathoth is not as important to the narrative as, like, outside of, like, how does Maruki get to be able to do all this, you know? Yeah, the only one that is something, there is something, the only thing that kind of throws a wrench into this for me is if you fail the deadline, you get a scene where he puts Maruki puts the protagonist to sleep forever. But I also kind of think that doesn't unravel Maruki's, like, philosophy as much as I initially kind of thought when I thought about it. Especially because those of alternate paths are always kind of treated as weird branches that most people aren't going to see anyways, so you don't really take them into consideration. But that's besides the point. My basic gist for now is just that, like, yeah, you can purposefully choose the bad ending when you accept his gift. Yeah, multiple times. That smirk, I don't know. It doesn't even really look like a smirk to me when I look at it. I genuinely believe that Maruki wants to give them a perfect world that will last forever. Now, whether or not Azathoth will one day gain control of Maruki and destroy the world himself, that's totally fair. I can buy that. However, I'm also of the opinion, and this is mainly opinion, I have nothing to base this on, this is just how I interpret it. I think the only way Azathoth can actually influence the world's events outside of, like I think he's totally given his power to Maruki, right? I think he actually can only influence things himself if Maruki gives him that power entirely, like he does in, before Adam Cadmon shows up entirely and gets his power, right? I don't think he can willfully take the power away from Maruki, because it's a symbiotic relationship. I think it has to be, like, a willful exchange. Other than that, I really just don't think Maruki is aware that if something is amiss, which is totally possible, that he knows. That's basically my big thing, is, like, if that's going on, I don't think he knows, because I think that kind of breaks his philosophy, which is the next thing I want to get into. Maruki's philosophy, what makes him so different and interesting over the other villains, / this is something I added 2 days ago when I recalled it because I totally forgot it when I did my first run. The originator of cognitive science. So, Maruki is fascinating to me because you get to this point of the game, we're probably not going to talk about Azathoth anymore, by the way, because I don't care about that nearly as much as everything with himself. So you get to that point with Maruki, and the whole game he's been like this super chill dude. He's a nice man, and everything he says seems nice. And not even in a too nice kind of way, it just seems like he's a good person. And they said in interviews they wanted him to be a juxtaposition to all the other really shitty adults, with the exception of, like, the S-Links in the game, because the game is a little too harsh on adults to an almost comical extreme. So they wanted to create a character who is a de facto good person. And I was always just a little wary of that. I was really worried that Maruki was going to turn out to just be another god, and I know he kinda does, but only because a god kinda gives him his powers. I mean, like, he was going to straight up be the human form of another god, which I would have been like, you know? That would have been boring to me, because I feel like we've done that before. That's the thing. His intentions are good, but here's the thing about what he's doing. And I want to preface this by saying Maruki's, like, philosophy is fascinating. There are obviously big flaws with it, but I think what he's doing is genuinely good for specific reasons. But I obviously think the true ending is the way to go, where you reject his philosophy. I want to get that out of the way before I say what I'm about to say. Otherwise, it's going to sound like I'm pro-brainwashing, which I'm not. So here's the deal. Maruki believes in a world that is genuinely a good place for everyone. He believes in the idea that everyone should be able to just live their life and not fuck over other people, and everyone should just be happy. It is a wildly good philosophy. It's all the other villains in the game are like, this horrible, repugnant piece of shit that you can never possibly justify how they'll ever be a good person again. And yeah, I'm gonna get there. How are you ever gonna justify it? And you get to this guy where he is such a good person that it's a problem. He's actually so good that it's bad, right? Because the thing is, like, his philosophy, there's an argument to be made that, like, if he really has found a way to, like, I think the thing that gets me is he does it person by person, and he's found a way to make everyone happy in a way where it's, like, total and absolute, and if things are going wrong, he can go back into a specific person's life and change it later, so that in case he did something wrong, he can fix it. It's very brainwashy, but there's also an idea there. Like, it's like, hey, I really can make other people... In a lot of these kind of It's a Wonderful Life stories, there's always a moment of, like, yeah, but he can't maintain the great reality because, like, he can't maintain everyone's happiness at the same time. If that's something that's going on with Maruki, the game never raises it, and I think that's a good thing. Because I like the idea that there's actually an argument to be made that he actually can make a world that's a good place. And that there's a question of, is it right of us to rob people of that? And I think that is an important question. The answer is important, because, like, he is gift wrapping everyone's perfect life, and I think if it was very obvious that there was a drawback to that, where he actually couldn't make everyone happy, this would be a lot simpler. It would just be, okay, well, let's just stop him then, because he's gonna destroy the world by accident or whatever. But because that he very clearly can make people happy and keep them happy, there's something there, right? Like, there's something to talk about. Is it right of us to remove that? Now, very importantly, there has to be an opposing ideology for this ideology to work, and of course it's the one that makes the most sense, which is, if people have everything they ever want handed to them on a silver platter for their entire life, no one ever grows, no one ever has moments where they can change, no one ever earns anything, which is, interestingly, Akechi's philosophy. Although he doesn't care about the other parts. He cares about the no one ever earns what they get part, which I think is very interesting. If every single person got what they wanted forever, there would be no... If everything about life is joy, there is no joy. It's the Incredibles thing. If everyone's super, no one is. You know, it's that thing. If everyone gets everything they want, no one's growing, no one's changing, no one's evolving, and I like that, there's a discussion here, and it's not just like, I think there's totally an argument to be made that if he can make everyone happy, hey, maybe you do let him. But I don't agree that you should, because then no one learns, no one grows, no one changes, no one earns anything. Life is pointless at that point because there isn't a life, right? That's how I come out on it. But I think what makes it so fascinating is that I can argue for the other side, and I can totally see it, you know? Like, there's something there. And yet, I ultimately, do choose the other way. My first instinct was, and it still is, no, we have to live for our own lives, and that's what, that's what everybody's all about, and I think there's an interesting question there, and I think that's what makes it so fascinating, is that you can make the argument for it, right? I disagree with his philosophy, but I think it's fascinating, and I think that's what makes him such an interesting villain to me. We'll come back to him in a little bit, but for now, I want to talk about what I have written down as Akechi's unredemption arc. So obviously Akechi has, this whole... Akechi has this whole thing where he's just like, hey man, he comes back, you're like, how are you alive? And he's like, I don't fucking care. And you're like, wait, that seems like a big thing to talk about. How are you alive? He's like, whatever. So we get to Akechi, and the one thing I was worried about with this is, and it's something that Robbie Damon actually said once, which I always really appreciated about his character, even at the points where I wasn't super on board with Akechi, before a lot of the stuff that they've added with Royal, and now I'm so in, man, I'm so in. Which was that Akechi doesn't need a redemption arc. That's not who he is. He would never take... And this is way before Royal was even announced, so this isn't even stuff he read on the page yet. This is just something he knew about the character, and he got it, right? So way before any of these changes were added, he already kind of knew this, which I really appreciate. Akechi is like... Listen, I'm back, I'm here, I'm gonna do what's right, because... I'm gonna spite Shido, basically. Not because I want to be the right... It's not because I want to do the right thing. That's a really interesting point, yeah. About the ideal and the real being Robin Hood and Loki. That's a really interesting point. I like that. And you have... Like, I was so worried when I saw him in this arc. At first I was like, here's the thing, the whole time I was like, thank God he's gonna get more, because him dying there makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense for him to just go away off screen. It's just not good. But I was worried, are they gonna try and make him too much of a good guy? Well, I'm excited, I want to see how it shakes out, but that is my fear. And not only do they not back down, they give me my favorite version of this character, which is the version of this character where he's not pretending anymore. The version of this character where he is super at all times. No, I'm an asshole. I love it. I don't want to stop. And it's not even in a I like doing bad things kind of way. It's not that. It's like, I want to do what I want to do, because, like, it could just as easily be, like, kind of the, without giving spoilers, like, the Persona 4 villain thing of, like, who cares? It's not, who cares? It's, no, man, like, strong, you know, I need to be, it's not even I need to be the best, it's like, I don't care, man. I just want to live my life, and my life is going to be very different from yours. And that's all there is to it. And I think it's so much fun to hang around him when he's not pretending about who he is. Like, him just screaming all the time and being a huge shit is so much fun. And God, it made me adore that character. Now, I'm going to talk about the big spoil after this. By the way, I love getting to use Loki. Real quick, I really wish that, this is a very minor thing, I wish in the Thieves' Den I was allowed to place the second and third tier personas. I would really like that. That's just me. I think they're all really cool. I will get to show them, thankfully, because I've got all their concept art, so we'll get to that. Obviously, I can't show movies anymore, but I can supplement stuff. So, that's good. I made sure, you might notice I have 182 coins, that's because I bought literally everything I can buy at this point. Because on my third semester save, I went and grinded out a shit ton of this stuff, with the exception of the obvious stuff that will take a couple playthroughs to get. I need to, like, work out how to do that one. These are for the twins and Lavenza. I beat Jose. Jose's not that hard, actually. He's fun. He's a fun fight. This takes a lot of work. The thumbnails for the videos, I believe the minute I open Maruki's thing at all... Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the minute I open it. Don't worry, there is stuff that I can show. So yeah, so that stuff's all great, and the thing that I want to talk about next, and before I get to the thing that I have written down here, I think Maruki is such a great final antagonist, not only because they build him throughout the entire game now, and, like, you know, there's a lot to talk about there, and the fact that there is an opposing ideology that at least seems to have a point that I'm really into, that obviously I disagree with, and I think the true ending is the right way to go, but, like, you know, there's something there, and I think that that's fascinating. I think mainly the thing that gets me is, like, the idea that if I told someone that I was going to remove all of their happiness from them that someone gave them, they could be pretty justifiably pissed at me, you know? And obviously I would have my reasons for why that's... I think that I don't think that works that way, but, like, you know, I can see why someone would be upset with me for it. So, here's the thing about Maruki. I think Maruki is such a great addition and such a great finale for the game that if Kasumi wasn't in the game, I think it would still be a way better ending than the original game, you know? Like, I think, and we'll get to that in a minute, I think if you remove Kasumi entirely, this ending is still way better. But I love her so much, and boy, does it supplement it in a great way, right? Like, I think that's what I like, is that Maruki could still be a really strong villain even without her, right? I think he just works on his own even without all that stuff. So, I'm being very careful which angle I show that tile at. So, we arrive at the palace, and Akechi and Kasumi are, you know, they're tagging along, they're trying to figure out what's going on, and throughout the early parts of the palace, we have these weird video screens that are showing things that didn't happen, that are, or rather, that are weird that they're here. They happened, but why are they here? Why am I seeing stuff about Kasumi's past in this palace that we don't even know as Maruki? I mean, you, the player, have probably figured it out months in advance. I think I figured it out around month 3. Most people figured it out before the game came out. And I mean, I think I kind of knew anyways, but, like, you know, again, like I said, I just hoped he wasn't just going to be a god, like, in a literal sense, where he was always a big dude, but he shrunk to a small dude, because that would have been really lame, if you ask me. But anyways, and at that moment, and I like that Akechi calls it out, that I'm at least considering the idea that this palace is Kasumi's. Like, that's a very strong possibility. Even though the whole, like, you can't awaken to a persona and have a palace thing was, you know, hadn't been put in my brain yet, because they don't address that with Maruki until slightly later. But that was still in my head. Like, is that a thing that's going on here? Like, what's the deal with that? I should be standing my sound around. What am I doing? So what's the deal with that? And then we realize through, as we get to, not at the bottom of, but there's an area in, I think I also totally did consider the idea that it was Kazumi's palace. But I also kind of steered away from speculation, like I intentionally didn't want to let myself think about it too much. Because I knew I'd figure some things out. So we get down below, and Maruki is looking all dapper as fuck. I can show a visual aid for that, actually. He's like, hey, listen, I just want to make the world a better place. And at first it sounds crazy, and like, well, yeah, but you can't actually do that. And like, you know, well, maybe. Maybe I can. Well, there's the name. Anyways, so, he reveals through a very tragic scene that, in fact, Kasumi was the one that died, not Kasumi was the one that died in that car accident, not Sumire. Sumire is the one we've been following all along. And at first I was real weirded out, because I was like, did she, like, intentionally steal her sister's life? Because that would have been fucked up, and I was about to be real upset, but, like, no, he made her think that. There was a moment where I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. That would have been awful, genuinely, if she was actually pretending on purpose. Like, she literally stole her life. That's what it seemed like for a second, but yeah, I really like how this plays out. He has used his powers, which I've avoided the word up until now, not even intentionally, but he has the power of actualization, which is the literal ability to, straight up, if he imagines it, he can create it. And he's going around and curating human lives, not even around what he wants, but around what they want. To the point where there's like a question, there's like moments where people are giving up on something that they genuinely want because it's hurting them. Because he's like, well, this is causing you too much pain. It's fascinating. And one of the first people he ever did it on was Sumire, who is, in fact, who has been alive this whole time. This poor, sweet angel. And she had an enormous sense of survivor's guilt. And he basically twisted around her brain to make her think that she was her sister. I forget the exact time frame. I think it's... I want to say it's a year, but I don't think it's that long. I think it's like a couple of months before school starts, or something like that. But yeah, to reveal that, in fact, she is the sister we thought died. Which is hilarious, because it's funny how, like, when people ask me, like, so did they really need to block the whole last semester? I'm like, you can't even show the pause screen without being spoiled. The moment I saw that the pause screen says Sumire, I'm like, oh, fuck. You can't show anything of this. Like, it's the most... God. Oh. He get like, yeah, as Red has put, he gave her the chance to run away from all of her problems with no consequences. And it's not even that, like, it's the chance to. He gives it to her, and she doesn't even really have a say in it. Which is, of course, where we get into the brainwashing aspect of it. Is what he's doing right? He is sparing her of a lot of pain, but is that correct? I don't really think it is. But there's an argument to be made, and I think that's the fascinating part. But the point is, Sumire feels an enormous amount of pain, and she is... It's funny how we get to basically meet two different characters. We basically get to meet Kasumi, or at least as close to her as her sister's brain understands her. At the very least, a perfected, actualized version of what she thought her sister was in her brain. Yeah, and yeah, that's another great one. The only reason why he thinks her name is Kasumi is because she dropped her card. And it's funny how you go back through the game, and every character calls her Yoshizawa-san, which you would never question because they do that for everybody else. All the teachers call Ryuji Sakamoto-kun. They call Takamaki. Actually, I don't think they really ever refer to her that way. But I don't think they ever. None of the teachers really talk to On, except outside of like text. I can't think of any vocal moments where it happens, but that's besides the point. Like they all, Kitagawa-kun, all that stuff, like Nijima-chan, whatever. They're all using their last names because, of course, they are. That's what you do in Japan. There's nothing weird about that. So you would never think that. But the only time where someone says her name out loud is her dad, and I really appreciate it. They do a really good job of obfuscating the line. When her dad says Sumire, if you listen to it, and I've popped that line a bunch of times in like the text log backup thing, like they obfuscate it just well enough to where you're like, wait, I don't really know what he just said. What's going on there? There's something going on there. Must just be part of the new reality, right? It's good shit. It's fascinating. No one ever calls her that besides you. It's completely fabricated in your brain. And that's the other thing is, like, they bring up, like, well, wouldn't other people in her life be calling her one name and that would freak her out? And it's clear that, like, he did something in her brain to make it so that she heard one thing whenever someone said one thing. She was hearing Kasumi when people said that. If someone said Sumire, she blocked it out like Cloud blocks out Zack. Like that shit. It's the same thing. Like that's how that shit works. And I like that they go ahead and explain like that's what's going on. How does that make sense? And from that point forward, she's very unsure of herself. She's like, the rest of her link is a lot of fun. Yeah, the only time it didn't seem like it worked entirely was when her dad said it. But I also think that is the first time that there was a flash with her dad. Because there's no way her dad was constantly saying Kasumi. He was definitely saying Sumire. I think the thing that did it, yeah, I think because the reality was settling, his, like, full-time reality was settling, she was able to parse it out. Like, I think because the reality was still being set up, something putzed up and let her hear the right thing to an extent. So yeah. Kasumi/Sumire, wow. The first time I played the game, first time I went through it, I was more trying to parse how all these details made sense than I was trying to think, like, you know, wow, this is really hitting me emotionally. The second time I did it, when I was just letting the story hit me, oh wow, that shit hit me like a truck that time. Not to say it didn't hit me like a truck the first time, it's just like, my brain was too busy trying to parse the first bit of new stuff that I'd had for this game in 3 years, and will probably ever have again, outside of, like, spin-offs. But yeah, so that is the deal with Kasumi/Sumire. It's gonna be really interesting seeing people talk about this character, because at a certain point we're gonna have to all be allowed to say the name. But right now, we ain't there yet, because I'm still just casually calling her the wrong thing, and that's interesting. Next thing I have written down here is third semester. Which is just a very general, broad thing. I don't think I'll have a lot to say, just I really like the amount of extra time they have here. I like the structure of the first... if I do have one complaint with the third semester, it's a minor one, I know. It's a nitpick, if anything, but I do have a complaint. It's that the scenes where you go to meet every character while they're living their perfect life, it's unvoiced. I know, it's still in the game, it's still good shit, but I would like it. It's fine. I'm just being a shit. I would like it. It's fine. I get it. I understand why you can't voice everything. It's a lot of work. But yeah. It's a lot of people. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see when Atlas finally gives up on that. Probably for Persona 5 Scramble 2 or P5 Arena, whichever comes first. I know. Oh, this is a quick tangent, but I know that the reason, like, Royal is canon in Scramble. It is. People have mistaken this a lot. It is totally canon. There is a valid reason why Kasumi's not there and why Akechi's not there. Assuming Akechi is alive, because that's kind of up in the air right now. We'll get there. I like that a future game can kind of just decide if he is or not, and I'm okay with that. And we can talk about how we get there later, and that's fine. Kasumi will... I'm still doing it right now. Sumire will, most definitely show up in a sequel to Scramble if that happens, and then the game will just treat Royal like it was always... It'll just treat Royal like it was always canon. You know? Yeah, no, a little bit of both, yeah. I think, like... Royal is definitely canon in Scramble, it's just that they were being developed at the same time, so they didn't want to write things into one that would contradict the other, so they just left references off the table, you know? It's one of those things where, if they make a sequel, they will treat it like it always happened, and then, you know, God knows how many Phantom Thieves will be in Scramble 2 or whatever, which Koei has already said they want to make, and the game sold well, despite some of those initial rumors. It did sell well, it's just that it sold 80% of its copies on the PS4. Shocker. I don't think the Switch version is gonna come to us in the West. At least not until Royal hits the Switch. I think they might come together, but I don't think that's gonna happen immediately. I would be very shocked if Scramble for Switch happened for us at the same time. I do think if we get another Scramble-like game, we'll get the P6 cast. I can see Scramble P5 happening. I think we'll definitely get a Scramble sequel. Mainly because I think they also want to play around with some of the Royal stuff, right? I think it'll be on Switch here as well. I just think that, like... yeah, you are right that those were on the 360, but I think they'll probably wait over in the West to when, to when they're also getting Royal on the Switch, you know? I think the main reason that I think that is because times have changed for Atlas within the last couple years to the point where, like, something like Q2 wouldn't get a dub, and Catherine Full Body had its Vita version canceled in the West specifically, you know? I think they would rather release Scramble at a time when Royal is also there so they can maximize sales. I think they would probably do a thing where they'd have, like, in a direct, like, here they both are. They're being announced. They'll both be out in the next couple of months. That kind of thing. It just makes more sense business-wise to do them at the same time than drop one when it's not even gonna sell, you know? You could do that back in the PS3 era because things were a little more loosey-goosey with, like, the series wasn't that big, you know? Niche, whatever, it's gonna sell whatever. But that's besides the point. I think that these games will make it to the Switch eventually. That was a weird tangent. Anyways. To be fair, Q2 whole body getting canceled is mostly because of being... Yeah, absolutely. Either way, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Scramble ended up on the Switch at the same time as we got it on PS4. But yeah, that's just... I wouldn't be shocked if it went away is more my thing. But yeah, so third semester, I really like the way that all that shit is structured. I like the extra days you have. I've managed to finish my... I literally only had one link outside of Kasumi. One event, one rank, rather, that I had to finish. And it was Oya's 10th on my first playthrough. And I had one night where I had that free, and I got it, so I got all of my links on my first playthrough. And I was really happy about that. It seems a lot easier to do now. Even though there are certain days that now I know, thanks to the Jazz Club, I need to pay attention to on the next playthrough. Gotta concentrate on Yusuke. Holy shit, that's godlike. Anyways. But yeah. The third semester adds a bunch of extra time and extra things such as the third tier personas, which is my next thing. So every single character's third tier is fucking perfect. It's their best one. Yes, Futaba also has some wonderful new skill. The first time you bring her on a Sunday, she gets a 1 debuff. I forget which order they come in. Then she gets the second debuff. Then she gets I think Debilitate. And then her fourth time you bring her to the Jazz Club on a Sunday, you get her buffs and debuffs activate more frequently, which is really good. I need to do that for sure on my next playthrough because I totally missed that. So, Diego. So, here's the thing. I don't know if this is a common opinion, but while I do think all of the second-tier personas are really cool, I don't like most of them as much as I like their originals. And I like the mythological trickster angle, and I like who they're all based on, and I think it's a good aesthetic, but, man, those first designs are really good. Which is why basing these on both something about the legend of whoever their particular one was about, and the actual design of it, it just hits really hard for me. I'm super fucking happy with what they did with that. Like, Diego looks fucking awesome. Like, this puffed out chest, the jacket that looks great in all of his dynamic poses. Oh my god, it's just so fucking great. And then, of course, you have, fucking... One second. Sorry about that. And then you have fucking Ryuji's Tier 3, which is so fucking magnificent, I can't believe it. William is radical. He is... Wait, hold on. Wait. Hold on, what's going on here? Wait. Hold on, what? Okay, that's enough of that. I have no idea if that even came across well. That might have sounded like shit, but that's fine. It was worth it to me. But yeah, Williams is fucking awesome. You just brought her Sumere's second tier from I'm alright with it to I love it. Because, wow, yeah, that didn't hit me, but you're super right. That's awesome. Kyle said, I'm gonna jump the gun a sec and say that Sumere's ultimate / second tier persona is likely inspired by Arsene because of how much she looks up to Ren. Yeah, that didn't hit me until just then. You're super right. Yeah, that's awesome. This fucking jacket, the cannon, everything about him. Also, their abilities that they get with these things are so good. Like, Fighting Spirit being a full party charge is awesome, and I like that something like the fact that you can get Concentrate on Yusuke now turns Yusuke into a more cost-efficient version of what Ryuji was in the original, all the way to mid to endgame, right? Like, he can apply some different ideas, and you can do other shit with him. It's great. Celestine is so fucking cool. I really like the attention to detail on the tattoo. This fucking, like... It's funny, I don't think this one uses the same rigging as, I don't think this one uses the same rigging as her first persona. I think there's a couple of things different to it, but it's definitely reminiscent of it, right? Like, I think it uses a different wireframe and stuff like that. I believe the animations are slightly different. Which is fair, because also Diego's animations are also different. Oops. Make sure I didn't mess up the stream. Do a sound test to make sure I didn't fuck that up. Yeah, okay, that's good. Okay. Celestine is fucking radical. Yeah, it does look a lot like her P3D outfit, or P5D outfit, you're right. So Gorokichi, as this crazy pimp with an insane cigar, is wild, and I love him so much. Like, it's so flamboyant and perfect for Yusuke. It's so good. Oh, also, shoutouts to the scarf. Yeah. So, I'm probably in the minority that the first time I saw Makoto's second tier, I was like, oh, okay, I liked it more when it was a bike. I like it more now because it's a Transformer and I get what they were going for now, but man, I was always reminiscent of the bike. And boy, did the super bike make me happy. Like, I'm so over the moon for it to be a super bike. Because I like a knot, but the bike is, again, like I said this before, my favorite ones are the ones that are unique to other personas and they're not just a guy that stands behind them, right? Where there's something else there, you know? Like how Futaba's isn't, like hers is, it's a mobile base, and Fuka's is something she sits inside of. Risei's is a little bit like that. Like, I know I'm just talking about, like, the Navigators, but also stuff like, even to an extent like Koromaru, where it's a bigger dog that sits behind the dog, but it's still like a dog, and that's different, you know? And it makes me happy. Even something like Castor, Shinji's, is like, it's like a horse on a, it's like a man riding a horse that's shaped like a fucking chess piece. It's great. I love it. Al-Azif. Now this one is interesting because the actual, like, design is a little obscure in terms of what it's trying to be. I've seen a lot of people just go, oh, it's just a lame triangle. So, this is specifically based on, and I really appreciate this, this is based on one of the first, quote, legit, take that as you will, UFO sighting videos, where there is a thing in the sky that is shaped like this, where it's shaped kind of like a pyramid-y triangle. And that's what this is based on, because it's the kind of nerd shit she would know. So it's a very obscure pick. Although I don't think the name is related to that. I think the name is separate. But yeah, it's good shit. I really appreciate a poll like that. Lucy? Holy shit. It's so good. I like... God, I'm forgetting what her second tier is called. No, Melody's the first. It's fine. But yeah. Fucking... That one's so good. So... Yo, I wasn't ready for this. Astarte, that was it. I was not ready for Hero Ward at all. Like, I had kind of... I guess at that point, I had kind of resigned to the idea that he would not get one. Simply because, well, you got to play as Loki, so you're good. I was like, oh, okay, Loki's pretty cool. That's fine. But Hero Ward is like, wow. Yeah, I wasn't ready for how fucking baller this dude is. Like, holy shit. I can see that. I just think Hero Ward's so fucking cool, and as a ultimate combination of elements of Loki being the evil trickster and Robin Hood being the perfect embodiment of good, it's just so cool. So we've obviously seen a lot of Cendrillon. Cendrillon's awesome. I do like Vanities. I like it a lot more than you pointed that out, actually. But boy, is Ella god tier, and this one hit me in a weird way, because that's also the name of my dog. So that felt weirdly targeted. But yeah, Ella is fucking gorgeous. Oh, man. This one hit me really hard. Yeah, all of these designs are fucking fantastic. So happy world, how it challenges the cast unlike ever before. Yes, I'm glad that I finally got to that. So now we're going to talk about why I think the third semester ultimately makes the cast have a final challenge that is individual and personal to each of them. I don't know. I still think Ella works really well if you don't choose to romance her. I still thought it was because whether it's a wedding dress or not, it reads to me as like the woman who went to the ball who has now fully become a woman. That's how Ella reads to me more than just like bridal dress, you know. But yeah, I think it can work either way. So yeah, again, like I said before, in these games, when you have every character has their big arc, and then you have their S-Link arc, but then they run the risk of becoming a little static by the end, and like they don't really conquer something that's specific to them. The third semester comes along and does something that I really wish I could have seen for the P4 cast. Something that I don't think the P3 cast even needed, because like throughout the game, again, all of their arcs are consistent throughout the main narrative, so they're never left behind in any way. Where you have each of the characters that wants something. And it's something that I think is extra fascinating about it, is it's not even something that, like, they're like, oh, I'll die if I don't get this. It's not their ultimate desire. They're clearly very happy to just continue being Phantom Thieves with their new friends, and they're happy that they've gotten the lives that they've gotten. But there is still something in their heart that they feel like they haven't gotten away from. So I'm going to pull open these that you get from completing the bad ending. Ryuji's dream is that he wants another shot at the track team. Ultimately, he says throughout the game, like, and it's even what his whole S-Link is about is, I don't belong there anymore, man. I wish I did, but, like, I don't. And I'm happy where I am. And that's something that I think is really important to each of them, is that they're all still happy where they already are. You know, like, they're not like, man, my life will never be good if I don't get this thing. But they're, you know, that doesn't mean they can't want it. So Ryuji ultimately wants a place where he wants his leg to have healed so he could have gone back to the track team and he could fulfill his wish. And it's a simple thing, right? But it's not even just about the track team. It's about, hey, if I get my scholarship, I can make life easier for my mom. And something I really appreciate, something I always really wanted to see, and I don't know 100%. In the true ending, during the credits flash, there's a sequence where Ryuji goes into a place and sees a woman. I think that's his mom. I hope that's his mom, because I really wanted to see his mom at some point in the series. Because I just wanted... even if it was only for a second, I just wanted to see her. That's kind of where I am, is for a lot of these characters, if their parents mean something to them, I at least want to see them for like a second. It just kind of means something to me, and that made me really happy. But yeah, Ryuji wanted a shot to get a scholarship, make his mom happy, and I don't really know if any of the stuff about like spiting his dad would really come into it, but like either way, he's happy. That's all he wants. Mangano wants to simp forever. That's his only dream. God damn it. That's all he wants. He just wants to simp forever. Lofty aspirations. But funnily enough, I think as much as a punchline as this could be, Morgana has a line that I actually wrote down because it stuck out to me in the final boss. During the actual final boss, Maruki has a moment where, yeah, he wants to be human as well. That's the other thing. Yeah, I'm underplaying that part. Yeah, you're right. Where he will speak to each of the cast about their dream individually, depending on if you have them on the field or not. I have heard all of them at this point. They're all really good. But the one he says to Morgana that made me genuinely tear up, because I think a part of me wanted to hear this stupid cat say it, and I thought I would never get to hear him say it, which is, Maruki says something to the effect of like, Morgana-kun, you could have everything you wanted, you could be with the girl that you love, and you could be a human like you always want to. And he says something to the effect of like, I am happy. I don't care what I look like anymore. And like, I needed to hear this cat say that, because that made me fucking happy to hear him say that. I don't care anymore. I'm me, and that's all that matters. That hit me really hard, and I was really happy with that. So, that's how I feel about that one. Alright. Hilariously, as I look through some of my other notes, I've covered some of them. I had a whole section for Ella and Hera Ward, but I seem to have already done that. That's funny. Oh, yeah. I'm not a cat! Oh, I guess I am. I got a belly laugh out of that one. That was really funny. Ann has a very simple wish. She just wants to be with her best friend. She doesn't want her to be gone anymore, and that made me happy. Like, it's a simple one, but it's what she wants. And like, there's almost not a lot to say about it. It's a very simple wish, but it's sweet. This one kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. Because initially, the assumption... Her best friend. That's entirely possible. This one hit me like a ton of bricks because while, yes, there is an aspect, and they even show it here, of like, oh, is his wish that Madarame was a good person? Kinda. But also no. That's kinda secondary to his wish. His wish is that he wants a mentor, right? And this is one of those things where I kinda think Maruki inserted Madarame because it was the easy choice, as opposed to, like, you know, it was necessarily what Yusuke wanted. No, what Yusuke wanted was something a lot more interesting to me. And it stands out from the rest of the cast, because a lot of the characters, multiple characters, 3 of them actually, 3 of their wishes revolve around, I want my dead parent back. It's a very obvious, selfless wish. I just want my loved one back. It's very simple, right? So you get to Yusuke, and you think, well, he wants his mom back, right? That's all he wants. No, that's not what he wants. It's something a little more interesting than that. He's okay. He's straight up. He accepts that she's gone, and he's lived with that. He loves her, and that's enough for him. What he wants is for her art to be appreciated as... Like, he just wants her art to be appreciated by the world. Right? Like, oh man, I think it's fascinating. I definitely understand, like, maybe he wanted his mother back, but I think it's more interesting to the idea that Yusuke is okay with his mother's death and accepts it because he loves her so much, and like, Madarame is like an easy. Like, he wants a roof over his head, right? He wants to be able to eat. He wants all that stuff, but he, more than anything, all he actually wants is for his mother's art to be appreciated. And that one hit me really hard, because it's not as simple as, like, I just want my mom back. Which is what the other ones, some of the other ones are. And they're justifiable in those reasons, right? Like, Futaba's couldn't have been anything else. If it, like, there's no argument to why she would want something else, like, you know? But I found that one to be very fascinating. Makoto, by the way, I wanted to see Makoto's dad, which is why the initial scene where... Because if her whole thing is, my dad's alive now, I'm like, well, I want to see him, even if it's just for a second. This, when I saw this, because I only saw these slideshows... Because I didn't do this ending the first time, I did that when I went through the game again. Or rather, when I went through the third semester again. I didn't play the whole game again yet. I'm going to probably do that soon. I was like, oh, I wish I could have seen her dad for like a second. This, even though they're doing that thing where you can't see his eyes, is enough for me. I know that might seem like a weird dividing line for me to be like, yeah, that's enough. But I actually, just seeing her and her sister happy with her dad, that does actually hit enough of the note for me to be happy. So, yeah, I totally get that, and I like this. The obvious one. Fuck. She's so happy. I mean, what do I even say? She just wanted her mom back. It's all she wanted. And hilariously, no, not hilariously, that's not the right word at all. Interestingly, in a way, Maruki did something... Oh yeah, her in the uniform is really great. Maruki did do something good for her in the end, which is, even if it was only for a bit, I think Futaba is happy to have even gotten a little bit more time with her. I genuinely believe that that was enough for her. And I think that will make her a happier person, even if it didn't last, you know? I think like, while a lot of them may have been a little bit, like, a lot of them express outward shame of falling for it, her included, actually. I think even seeing her mom for a bit was enough to make her happy. And, yeah, that's great. So Haru's is interesting. Haru's could have been a lot simpler. Haru's could have just been, I want my dad back. You know, simple. Instead it's also, not only do I want my dad back, I want my dad to also be a good person who understands me and respects me as a woman and will help me build myself into something as well. I want him to not only be alive, but to respect me. And, yeah, it's... Oh, man. Yeah, that scene where she accepts it is really great. Haru's is really nice. Even though, obviously, Haru's arc has some issues, this brought her to a close in a way that I was really satisfied with, and it feels like a really good final challenge for her. Okay, so this one's crazy. So, here's the thing. This is something that was always inferred in the original, but it was also kind of mostly fan extrapolation, which is how much Ren feels sorry for Akechi. Despite the fact that Akechi's genuinely fucking offended that he would feel sorry for him. Like, actually straight up, I hate the fact that you would feel sorry for me. Stop. Ren wants a world in which... Because this is very important. This isn't Akechi's wish. This is Ren's wish. He wants a world not where Akechi can try and atone. He wants a world where Shido never got his claws in him. He never manipulated him into doing all those things. And he got to just be... He never got corrupted. He could just be a person who could live a normal life where they could be friends. And they build this out in such a great way that I adore. I really got where they were going with it, and it's a really nice little twist. But also fascinating because it's expressly against Akechi's wishes, as you learn. And we'll probably get into that a little later, too. And of course, Sumire wants to continue being Kasumi and win, you know? Man. It's a simple one. She just wants to keep pretending that her sister is alive and carry on their wish. But, interesting. I keep trying to say hilariously for some reason. I don't know why that's the adjective I keep picking. But interestingly, of all of these wishes, at least, well, I mean, you know, not yet, but of all of these, Kasumi's is the one that still gets to come true to an extent, because what her wish is ultimately is that her and her sister can carry on their dream and win and prove that they're the best and prove that, like, their dream is worth fighting for. And even without Maruki's reality, she still gets to fight for that. And I'm willing to bet we'll win that, too. After she goes to, you know, summer camp. And then, this last one where they're all living happily in this fake reality. Which has a very interesting intonation here, which is, what could that pair be looking at? Which is referring, of course, to these two looking out. I believe... I wonder if this is the smirk people are referring to, but I don't think so. I think they are definitely looking at Maruki. Or the player. It's actually totally possible that they're just kind of having their, like, hey, thank you so much for playing my game kind of thing. But I think Maruki might be standing in the door, just kind of waving them off. Either way, you know, up to interpretation. It's a pseudo non-canon ending. Of course, non-canon doesn't really mean a lot in SMT. So, you know, as non-canon as these things can get. What's next? That was a very quick one. Oh, new palace, aesthetically, design-wise. Why do I love it? Did get to mention it since I wasn't here. It was arc. I found it funny. I thought you had nothing without me too dangerous. Oh yeah, oh yeah. That fucking musical is incredible. I've listened to it so many times. Someone animated it in like a rough, like uncolored sketch animatic. It's really nice. I would like to see it colored and maybe even 3D animated, outside of like shitty source filmmaker models. You know. I would love to see an artist go ham with that, basically. But yeah, why do I love this palace? I think I love it because, one, the pseudo-futuristic vibe has always been my thing. It's the reason why initially I was so let down by Okumura's palace, because I'm like, oh, this should be my favorite one, but it sucks. And now I'm happy with it, mostly because they've cut out all the fat, and trimmed it down to just its gimmicks. And like the aesthetics that they bring out, that I think one of my favorite things in it is a sequence in which you have to answer questions and try and get them to be answered from Maruki's perspective. Stuff like, hey, if your friend was about to be assaulted, it's assuming you're in school, would you get a teacher or would you go and help? The obvious, quote, obvious answer is you would go help. But of course that answer would involve you getting hurt, so that's not what Maruki thinks. He thinks you should go get someone else to help, even though there's a bigger chance of them getting hurt if that happens, because, you know, more time may pass and things may happen. Stuff like that. But the one that makes me love it, because the second question's pretty good too, but the fifth one is, you have gained the ability to steal a heart, and you will have no negative consequences, and stuff like that. What do you do? And there's a bunch of different options. One of them is steal a loved one's heart, which is obviously incorrect because that involves hurting another person, which is against his ideology. Another one is like, hey, if you go this way, then you can you can rob banks or whatever. You know, do all sorts of Phantom Thiefy shit that's not really like morally correct, but no one will ever know, so who cares? And the interesting one is that they go for the two ones that they try to steer you in the direction of are steal evil hearts, or I think it's something to the effect of do nothing or be with your family. And I assumed, because the game is deliberately trying to lead you down the do nothing and be with your family route, like the game is trying to tell you that's correct. You go down that route and it's wrong. And in fact, if you go into the one that is steal evil hearts, it's correct. Because while, like, he's not doing that, Maruki straight up agrees with the Phantom Thief philosophy, and I think that's so interesting. Because the game is trying to convince you that he doesn't believe that, but that you pick that and you realize, oh no, that is what he thinks. And I like that they can tell you something big about his character purely through a choice like that. It's a really great touch. The next while of these are going to roll pretty quickly, so I'm going to throw on an incredible track and grab a drink and pee again, because I'm gonna bring this out to the long haul now. Have fun with that, I'll be right back. Oh, don't worry. We're gonna get some track changes in here. Don't you worry. We'll just get there when it's time. Give me a moment to spray my throat with some of this shit. Oh! It's called Biotine. It's for when your throat's fucked up, but it's worth it for this. Alright. Out of Kindness is such a good track. Like, holy shit. Let's see, what was next? I think it was a fairly quick one. Yes, final Mementos blocks allow for more time with Kasumi. It's not really a whole lot to say about that, other than to play this, because holy fuck. All the new Mementos themes are really good, but holy shit, this one blew me away. The idea, by the way, the idea of Memento, even though it tripped me up quite a bit in terms of the mapping, Mementos going up is such a great idea. Like, extending it by another 16 floors straight up, oh man, I lost it. Like, the moment that I realized, like, oh, it's not the new version of the theme, wait, no, it's the old one, but they're killing it. Like, oh my god. It's like Shoji Meguro had something to prove. Which he kind of did. But yeah, the final Mementos block's giving a lot of extra time with Kasumi for you to show off, which I just realized I didn't show off. That would have been really bad if I left this without doing this. Because I love this so much.
Shall we?
These two are OTP for me from now on, and I was really worried that I was a little worried that, like, is she just gonna be female Joker, and like really worried is probably an over-exaggeration. I was a little worried, but no, they're so different from each other that I'm just really happy with how that played out. Yeah, that one is so good. I wanted to show that one on Twitter, but that's got a huge spoiler in it, so I can't do that. So yeah, what's next? Next thing I had written was Ella and Hereward. So the next thing I have here, in fact, is Akechi really did die, seemingly. So she's one of my favorite characters in the series. She's fantastic. It gives me a lot of hope that Atlas has finally figured out what their new girl is supposed to be. Actually, yeah, we'll leave this on for a little bit longer. So yeah, Akechi. So we get to the moment where Maruki is confronting Ren and being like, "Hey, listen, I know we've got some ideological problems here, but like, I really do want to know, because I want to make your life better. I don't just want to do something like obscene and hurtful. I want to actually make your life better. Are you sure you won't come with me on this?" And of course the answer is still no. But then he has something that it's not even that he thinks it'll change his like decision, but he's like, you should probably be aware, which is that Akechi totally did die in that scene that he originally died in. That, in fact, has not changed. And I like that they don't try and change up the original's narrative to the point where they overwrite that. Like, to the point where that death still kind of actually does have the meaning they wanted it to. But there's something else additional on top of it, right? It's not overwriting it. I just think it's a really slick piece of writing, the way that they do it. And, of course, since he is here, but he was super dead, you can figure out that... A quick thing to note is when Haru's dad and Futaba's mom are alive, they are absolutely flesh and blood. They are not fakes. It is not, like, I have created fake versions of them in order to come back. They are straight up alive again. It is them. It's not fake versions of them, it's them. Oh yeah. The chest piece, yeah. It's straight up them, so like, the version of Akechi that we've been rolling with the whole time, it is him. He's alive again, but it's an incorrect piece of world fiction, you know? Like, he shouldn't be here. And what I think is a really interesting thing is, at a moment where you would think he would be like... You would expect in a lot of cases him to be like, yeah, well, you know what? I mean, fine. I guess I'll live here after all. No, he's like, no. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to be some weird experiment for some weird dude. Like, I'm not about that, and if my life is done, then I guess it's done. That's fine. Yeah, it's implied that he's still dead, right? And we'll get back to that later. But, yeah, essentially, like, he is very much... He shouldn't be here. And if you fix what I've done, well, he ain't gonna be here. He about to head out. So, if that influences your decision, then let it. And I think it really hit me how well that scene plays out when, if you say, and I did say this the first time, you said something to the effect of like, are you really okay dying? He goes, yeah, I am. And I'm frankly offended you would think otherwise with everything I've said. So, yeah, fuck you. And I thought that was very interesting. And this character has gone on such a journey, and boy, have I gone from being happy with him to, but I wish we did certain things, and to all the way to, yeah, this is like one of my favorite rival characters ever. Like, I'm so fucking over the moon with how well that's done. And then, of course, he gets her award, and that's just great. So, on our run-up to the final boss, we get to new final boss emotional challenges. So again, we arrive at our true ending. Let's not look at him just yet. He's up there, you can see him. We arrive at our true ending. Life will change part 2. I like that. We get to Lynn's greatest fucking Oh my god, this track is incredible. Boy, I was so worried that this track was just gonna be like a boss track because it didn't feel like a boss track, which is funny because in the music player it's actually listed as a boss track. But it's not at all. It's a moment track, which is what it should have been. And god, I'm gonna end up listening to the song and not talking. And fucking like. So we get up there and, you know, he tries to ask us one last time, are you guys, like, really sure you want to take away other people's happiness? It's like, well, I mean, we can't argue for other people's lives, so I guess we're just gonna have to live our lives the way we want to. And then this motherfucker looks like this, and I'm like, yo! Yo! Let's go! That's some good shit right there! Thank God we never zoom in on this, though. What a fucking fantastic finale. It's what I always wanted. Like, this game fixes so much of my issues, so many of the things that I had a problem with, and it turned out all you really needed to do is extend it by another month. And man, that made me happy. So yeah, of course, we, you know, like, we're dealing with, like, okay, again, if you want to fight me, I mean, I guess that's fine. I'm not gonna really just stand by and let you destroy a bunch of people's happiness, but, like, yeah. Are you sure you want to take that away from people? And the answer is, yes, motherfucker, we get it. We get it. People need to grow and need to learn. And I really do appreciate that he seems to kind of get that by the end, which, you know, might even lead to him returning in a future game as more of an ally, and I'm super in on that. Billy Kemitz fucking kills it. Like, yo... That guy went from goofy Ferdinand von Ayer to me, I'm not super familiar with his other work, to like, wow, this guy is, like, fucking god tier. This dude did such a great job with Maruki. And he has a specific cadence to the way that he talks that's totally different from even, like, Ferdinand and Fire Emblem. Like, and I really appreciate. So, of course, we beat him. I mean... a fair amount of this game is JoJo, so you know. So then we get to Adam Cadmon. And here's the thing. By the way, oh yeah, I was aware he was someone in JoJo, but I wasn't sure who. So like, we get to the final boss. Oh, I'm really tempted to let the last verse play before I do this. Yeah, we're gonna do it. Yeah, it feels like a end finale. It feels like the button on the narrative song. That's what it feels like. Which is good because, okay, as the theme goes up the stairs, we are treated to this theme, which is the song. It's Lynn's final song from the Phantom Thief's perspective. And then as we get up the stairs, we have a wonderful final boss. That I'm like, man, this is a really good final boss. I really like the actual Maruki fight because of how heavily it relies on baton pass, and like, boy, you better have gotten those baton pass ranks up, cause oh boy, I like the focus on that. I think it's a more interesting final fight than Yaldabaoth overall because like, it's kind of some of the same ideas, but they're just being played out in a more interesting way. And boy, I'm just super happy with that fight. And then when I'm at a point where I'm like, yeah, you know what? That fight was great. I'm really happy with that, and I think I like the fight a little more than the original final boss too. I'm like, but it would be really nice if I had Oh, wait, what's going on? What is this beautiful sound? I heard the first few notes of this track ahead of the game's release, and I was immediately like, no, don't let me hear anything else. Like, I heard the opening piano, and I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. So you have the track as you're running up to Maruki that is the... Like, it's the finale track from our hero's perspective, and then you have the track that is from his perspective. And it's so good. I'm just listening to it for a minute because I know I'm going to end up listening to it otherwise. God, the original game was just missing a nice vocal track to play it out. For a game that had so many great vocal tracks, it was a crime that it ended on an instrumental, even though I like that track. But this is so fucking perfect. So yeah, the actual fight with Maruki after his tendrils are gone, I found to be a little easy. I'm excited to try it on a higher difficulty. But at the same time, I think the real fight is the first Azazel variant, so I'm alright with that. Whereas the third one is just a victory lap. Like, it's not a real fight at all. It's basically a cutscene, but I'm totally fine with that. This fight made me really happy. It just hits all the right notes, and I was so into it. This fucking track blows me away every time. And then, after we've dealt with that, Maruki's persona ascends to Adam Kadmon, who has a very interesting biblical, like... Did that phone just fucking fall? Oh, okay, it's fine. Adam Kadmon obviously has a very biblical, connotation that I'm not going to get into here, but, you can look it up. And boy, was it really neat to see that. He looks awesome, too. As a quick tangent, I like the idea of Azathoth being obviously a Lovecraft thing, whereas, like, the game already had, Lovecraft stuff in Futaba, but that was kind of it before. And now, like, they had, now there's we tie into that a little more with the ending, and, I just really appreciate it, because, like, obviously SMT is the fucking, like, mythical beings cinematic universe where anybody could show up. Everyone is here, so, pulling from that is a really nice way to end it out. He looks fucking great. He does have Anti-Monitor vibes, actually. You're super right. So, next up, I'm going to talk about Checkmate very briefly, because I screamed really loudly. So, you get to that last moment, and I didn't really think about how this game needed its power of friendship moment until I got there, where they're blocking the punch. God, I wish I could just play it right now, but I can't. I'm not allowed. And, like, they're all holding it back. Like, hey, we've come really far, we're not gonna give up now, and I'm screaming, I'm crying, I'm ugly tearing, I'm losing my fucking mind. It was the moment that the original ending needed, and I was so fucking happy. Especially because they start pumping, I believe, at the moment that I couldn't have dreamed up something better. I was so happy with that. Like, holy shit. That moment is so incredible. Okay. I wrote this as a double thing for earlier, but, that's fine, I can get to it now. The Morgana Copter is such a last-second wish fulfillment of, like, yeah, sure, why not? That they even justify it with the star? That, like, okay, it's one thing for it to be in a cutscene. Man, it was an extra icing on the cake when I came into the den and found out they made a model. Like, they didn't need to do that, but they wanted to, and that made me really happy. From the outer edge, for fuck's sakes. Yeah, Morgana Copter, and I like that they literally, like, because of spin-offs, there's a moment where Morgana looks to the camera and says, And it'll never happen again because I can't do it anymore. Got it? Now stop asking. It will never happen again. Really? When did they foreshadow this? I don't know if I caught this. When you say extremely early, do you mean in the original or like in the third semester with the star? I'm going to assume the star. I might have even caught this. It's just slipping my mind right now. Ah. Let's see. Okay. So next up, what I have written down, one of my favorite tropes since Metal Gear, really. Ryuji mentions something about becoming a helicopter in the first mention of Mementos. Yeah, you're right. You're super right. They do call that out. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's pretty good, actually. I don't remember. Is that a new Ryuji line? Because I know there are new Ryuji lines. There's a ton of new Ryuji lines, actually. I wonder if that's there. I'll have to check. So, Maruki and Ren, every punch is an ideal, is what I've written down. Because, like, when you get to the end of your thing, and it's just two dudes punching each other for their dreams, for their ideals, it's the fucking best trope. I love it so much. God fucking damn it. Oh. And you get through that, and Maruki, like, has a moment of admitting, yeah, well, maybe there is something to the way you want to live your life. Maybe there is something to people growing because of their trauma. And I think that almost makes him an even more interesting character. The fact that he can get through all that, and as opposed to lessening him for having a moment of, like, yeah, okay, I get it. The idea that he can grow as well as the protagonist, yeah, that shit's great. I really do appreciate also how they play the notes of Our Light, the new ending theme, which actually, since we're about to talk about the ending, let's roll that. Our Light is a really fucking good ending theme. With the star, I love With the Stars and Us, don't get me wrong, but Our Light is so fucking perfect. I love it so much. So, you know, he admits defeat, reality is distorted, you have your scene with all your S-Links doing the same thing they did in the original. That shit's all still good. So this is a thing I thought was interesting. Phantom Thieves decide their futures in a new way. There is a scene that was definitely not in the original, where all the thieves basically kind of look at each other and go, well, I mean, I've kind of figured out the next chapter of my life. I'm going to move away. Ryuji's moving away. Futaba's going to start school. Haru and Makoto are going to college, and they're going to buy apartments. Interestingly, all stuff that's true in Scramble. All of this stuff we technically learned there first, from like pre-release stuff. And I think that is another button on their, like that's another button on their new growth in the third semester that I think is really necessary. I actually, going into this game, I didn't want it to have a Persona 4 Golden moment where you flash forward to like a year later and they all look different. I didn't want that because Persona 4 Golden already did that. It would feel a little weird to just sort of reuse that. I like that instead we establish what they're going to do next, and that's enough. That's all it needs to be. You know, we tell you this is what they're all going to do, and interesting. I keep trying to say hilariously for some reason. We're going to see more of that in Scramble later, and I think that's really nice. I think giving us an idea where that's going to go is great. Next up, I have 215 in the White Day stuff. Yeah, those are really great events. Hilarious. Something I thought was pretty funny that I didn't know about is when I did my replay, I was skipping all the extra bits. Like I skipped because I already did the Futaba date during that, so I skipped through it. So I specifically on Valentine's Day didn't go with her. I hung out with Ryuji and Yusuke and Sojiro, which I'd never done before. I'd never seen it. and I don't know if it's different this time, but, like, it's a really sweet scene. But then, I wasn't dating a second person, but Futaba shows up the next day and beats the shit out of me herself. And I thought that was hilarious. Oh, man. Which is even funnier because the dialogue doesn't change, and they all act like there are multiple girls in the room, but she's the only one there. Like, it's literally, like, Sojo's like, oh, well, I told him, I made sure, you know, like, you're the only one for him, which I guess the justification at that point would just be, oh, you went somewhere else on Valentine's Day. But anyway. New ending leads to Scramble. Akechi possibly alive. Let's talk about that for a quick minute. So again, we see a quick shot of Akechi walking by the window in the true ending. And that is very interesting, because that could either be entirely in Ren's vision, or it could be super real and he's going to be alive in a spinoff. I'm going to say it's probably the latter, because I imagine a Persona 5 Arena would very much like to use him. And, you know, maybe they'll try to justify something for it, but I'm very much of the opinion that he'll be alive. And I'm alright with that, because I want to see more of him being a crazy asshole. I want to see more of that, and I don't want that performance to end. I like that it can go either way, and even if you just play this game, you can go under the impression that he is still dead. So that all works out. New ending feels entirely honest and fulfilling to the entire story. I don't think I need to explain that. But, oh yeah, absolutely. I think he'll either be in Arena or he'll be in a Scramble sequel, which is almost guaranteed to happen. So, yeah, I think the new ending just feels really honest to the story, and it ends in the place that I feel like it always should have. So without, like, overdrawing this, because this is the end of my notes, mostly, I did have a moderate closing statement prepared, which is just to say, why did this affect me? Why did this game stick out to me? Why is this game now? Why did this game's new content bring it over P3 for me, which meant an enormous amount to me, because of P3's messages about coping with death were something that I was really invested in. Why did this affect me? Well, some of the lessons I think I took away are maybe a little trite to some people, but, you know. It helped me to kind of get to a realization of, like, you know, it's stuff that you can get from a lot of different places, but pushing even when life seems to want to make that impossible is something that I got from Futaba, honestly. And even though shitty people will always try to ruin your life, even in the worst moments, you just have to believe that what your version of the world is right. And you don't be afraid to take in new information to make sure that it's true. Obviously, you don't want to get wrapped up in your own ideas, like Maruki does, that you can't see anything past that. But, you know, learn, take in information, try and become a better person, and fight for what you believe in. Life is very gray, but you should believe in what your version of right is. And while you definitely need to take in new information so that you don't end up on the wrong path, forge your own paths forward. And that's kind of what I think I took away from it, and why I think it means a lot to me. So yeah, one second. Oh, that's totally in here. Yeah, the vocal version of No More What Else is here. I'm unfortunately gonna cut off my light, but you know, it's there. Where is it? Yeah, it's right there. But yeah, I'm not gonna let the whole song play out again, as much as I would like to. But yeah, that is... I mean, this is my favorite game ever at this point. I feel pretty hard-pressed to deny that, as much as maybe some people might want me to. So that's kind of where I'm at. Well, I feel like I poured my heart out a lot over the course of this. I'll make sure to put these 3 in a playlist, and also go put them in a couple other places as well, so that people can take a look at these in sequential order. I was pretty bummed that I couldn't do this all in one stream, but admittedly, now that I realized I had 7 hours of things to say, that's probably for the best. I did not think I had that much. I really thought I could do this in 3 hours, but that was obviously very incorrect. Thank you very much for listening, whether you did it live or you did it on the VOD. Thank you very much for sticking around for this whole thing. I'm genuinely a little concerned how you even follow up P6 with this. Oh boy, I think they have. I am actually really excited for the new team stuff, to be honest. Q2 was my favorite spinoff. I really loved the story in that. So I've got good hopes for it, and especially with this. Even with like bits like the Haru, again, I love Haru's arc. I don't love the other stuff in that arc. Even though I have that, like, I can't tell you that... You know what? I'm gonna use a term that I saw someone use the other day. This is objectively a 9.5 out of 10. To me, this is always gonna be a 15. To me, and what it did to me, and how it affected me, yeah, that's where I'm at. Objectively, yeah, sure. It's got some issues. I can't deny that. But... can't deny what it did for me either, so. Thank you very much for sticking around for this whole thing. Oh, man. I don't know. I think we'll see the P5 cast even when P6 is around. We did with Q2. And I definitely wouldn't be shocked to see that cast show up in Arena. But anyways, thank you very much. Goodbye, no one and gentlemen, and good night. Oh, I should have let the notes play for like 2 more seconds. Wait. Okay. Bye-bye.